Hydrangea have always been one of my favorite flowers. I guess being Southern, I didn't have much choice in that, but I've painted quite a few of them over the years, and while I've had some success, I have recently done a painting where I feel like there was a convergence of just the right brush, just the right technique, and it was by far the best hydrangea I've ever done, and I just love it, and I wanted to share with you how I did this painting. Stay tuned. For most of my painting career, I have used flat brushes regardless of the subject matter, but for this latest hydrangea painting, I switched over to a filbert brush, and my goodness, it made such a difference. I used the smallest one on the left. You'll need to adjust the size depending on the size painting that you're doing. That particular one is a Master's Touch number 10 filbert. I strongly recommend you loosely paint in a drawing of where those hydrangea head are going to go, and don't just start painting. I like having, like that one I'm doing right now, it's going to be facing the back, so you don't want them all lined up, and you don't want an even number like I have there. You're going to see that I go from 4 to 3, so I would suggest do 3, 5, 7. Try to not have them lined up. Try to have them facing different directions like they would if you put them in a bowl or a vase. I'm using Naples yellow to have a kind of a glow underneath and to cover up that hot pink. I'm drying it with a hair dryer just to make sure before I put the blossoms on we've got a real dry surface. Alright, so I'm using my filbert brush. You'll notice I'm putting a ton of paint on there. I'm using white with the tiniest touch of Naples yellow. I'm turning that brush. I'm letting the end of the brush go down first, the rounded filbert size, and then I'm just turning that brush. Every time I put a stroke, it looks like I'm painting the 4 petals, and I am in a few places, but I'm not being so tight to that, but I'm mainly making sure that I'm turning my brush. You don't want to have a perfectly round outline. You need to make sure that you've got an interesting outside edge. So pull some petals in, some petals out. This is where it's nice having a strong background color where you really can enjoy the petals and the shapes. Here I'm adding the smallest amount of ultramarine blue to the back side of that flower just to give you the sense that it's in shadow. On this one that's behind the bowl, I'm using a little more blue just to deepen that shadow look. Again, just varying those strokes, making sure that the outside edge stays interesting and not too symmetrical. And the hydrangea in the middle of the bowl is actually a blue one, so it's going to be much deeper. At some points, I'll even use pure ultramarine to get really dark places. I am intentionally picking up different amounts of white and yellow and blue as I go back to my plate of paint, varying the color that's going down. I intentionally did not pre-mix my colors for this painting because I wanted to see individual variations within petals. And if you have pre-mixed piles of paint, it can just start looking too similar. I wanted a real organic variety on these petals. Again, turning that brush every single stroke. Now I'm just using pure ultramarine, and you'll notice on the right side of that middle flower, I intentionally put petals in front of the flower on the right, so it would show that it's in front of it. It's important that these not look like they're lined up like soldiers, but that some come forward, some go back. And I slowed this down a little bit. I wanted you to see, with this hydrangea on the right, I am now dipping into pure white and putting some little highlight spots in there. Again, notice turning the brush. Now, I didn't wash my brush off, so I'm picking up some blue. There was a little blue left on there. But if you start off too light with your flowers, even if they're white flowers, it doesn't leave you any place for highlights like this. So it's important, if your flower has kind of a yellow tone to it or a blue tone to it, leave some space for that white at the very end. I just love this effect where you just get the sense that there's just a little dapple of light hitting here and there, and it really gives you the feeling that there's some petals that are sticking out farther than others. It's just a great effect. Love it. Here I'm putting in just a little outline for a leaf, very simple. And notice that the point, instead of going straight out, I just turned it down. So all of a sudden now this leaf has the shape that it's going over the edge of that bowl and going down. Such an easy thing to do. Here I'm using a dark green right underneath that petal line that's going to make it look like there's shadow. Shadow and light on leaves can really help give it form, help determine the direction, and just you can really get some great illusion with this flat surface by where you put your shadows. Here I'm using a little liner brush with a lighter green, and just by that stroke, just by putting a little curve, it can really help shape the direction of that leaf. And then I'm going back in and I'm putting some real light veining. Again, just being mindful of the direction. Don't overthink it. I'm not putting hardly any pressure on that brush. I'm just barely touching it. Just quick little strokes, trying to keep it loose. And then when you put the veining in on the darker side of the leaf, be sure to darken up your color a little bit. Easy peasy. I wanted to mention one more trick that I think is real effective on the stems of the hydrangea. If you'll just put a little bump on either side of the stem, it makes it look like it's got texture. It just looks more organic. I put browns and greens. I put multiple coats of different colors on those stems just so they look as natural as possible. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I invite you to check out my website, victoriahagemanart.com. There you'll find very inexpensively priced full-length courses and shorter tutorials. And you can also take a look at my original paintings that are for sale. 25% of my painting sales goes to Hydrating Humanity to build water wells. You can beautify your home while beautifying a life. And I would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you'll be sure not to miss all the great free stuff that comes every week. Thank you, and God bless.